Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final student finance talk of the evening. Obviously, when we usually do a UCAS evening in June of the first year, and due to the COVID pandemic, we couldn't do it. We hope to do a physical evening. We did in March anyway. We hope to do a physical evening when we returned in September, but obviously that's not going to be practical either. The objective of this section is to give you an idea of how student finance works. I'm going to work from the principle that nobody knows how it works at all, and I'll run through the Student Finance England talk, and I'll explain how we work at Wyke in relation to that. As far as student finance is concerned, there are two types of loans. So the first is the tuition fees loan, and that will cover the entire cost of the tuition fees that the university is charging per year, regardless of your household income. All students are eligible for that, and that isn't means tested at all. The government has set the maximum level of tuition fee at £9,250 per year. Most universities will charge that per year for tuition fees for those courses. So all students can get the tuition fee loan. The Student Finance England will send the loan, the payments directly to your university. So they essentially cut out the middleman. You don't ever see that money as a student or as a parent. It never hits your bank account at any point. And tuition fee loans do need to be repaid, but they will only be repaid once your son or daughter have finished their university course, graduated, and they're earning above a certain threshold. And I'll come on to thresholds and repayments a little bit later, if that's okay. The second side of the tuition, not the tuition fee, but the student loan system is a thing called a maintenance loan. And this is maybe not the fairest system in the world to operate within, but it's designed to support students with their living costs, for example, rent, recreational activities, books, etc. But it is means tested against household income, and it does vary depending upon where you study. So you'll get less maintenance loan if you live at home than you would if you were living away from your parents and studying in London, for example. So all eligible students can access maintenance support. It is means tested against your household income, and it does vary depending upon your circumstances. My advice around working out what you're eligible for from a maintenance loan point of view is to type into Google student loan calculator, and that will take you to the gov.uk website, and you can put in your individual circumstances, household income, the costs, the type of cost that you're applying for, and it'll generate you an idea of what you'll be eligible for from a maintenance loan point of view. And then you can move forward with budgeting in relation to that figure. And once again, the maintenance loan needs to be repaid, but you don't repay that until you've completed the course and your income goes over a certain threshold. And I'll come on to that later, I mentioned before. The difference between tuition fee loans and maintenance loans is this is paid directly into your bank account at the start of each term, each semester. It's usually split into three relatively equal amounts, and you would get one payment in the September, October time of the winter term, and one payment at the start of the spring term, and then the final payment at the start of the summer term. So maintenance loans and levels, these are the maximum levels that students will receive, but there will be a means test that's applied to your household income, so you may not receive this amount. It may be slightly less than this depending on your circumstances. So if you live at home whilst you study, that will top out at £7,747. If you live away from home whilst you study, £9,200 that you're eligible for. These are levels for 2021, so they may go up slightly by the time you're eligible for university in 21-22, but I can't see them going up by a huge amount. And then if you live in London and you live away from home, then obviously you're eligible for an awful lot more because the cost of living is much more expensive down in London. There are a number of financial support streams available outside of the loan system. So if you need additional help for specific circumstances, so if you're a parent, so for example, if you're a student who's a parent and you have dependents that are relying on you, you may get slightly more money, and I'll run through the options in a second or two. If you have a disability, you may be entitled to apply through a specific fund. And for example, if I can just find them here, there's a system called childcare grants, which helps with childcare costs for dependent children aged under 15 at the beginning of an academic year, or 17 if there's a special educational need. There's a parents' learning allowance, which is available for course-related costs for students with dependent children. There's an adult dependence grant, which can help students who has an adult who depends on them financially. And there's a DSA, which is Disabled Students Allowance, which will help pay extra costs a student might have as a direct result of their disability. So there are options if you have additional needs and additional dependents. I would just advise you come and speak to us. I think you're very welcome to talk to your tutor, and they can look into this for you if you do need support in and around that. Okay, so I'm going to move forward just around applying for Student Finance England. So Student Finance England is a completely separate system to UCAS. It's not attached to the college in any way, shape or form. Students' UCAS applications are directly linked to the college, and they don't get sent off until we authorise them. Student Finance is completely independent, and it is the responsibility of the student and their family to fill that in. We'll offer advice and guidance where we can, but obviously we don't want to be in receipt of personal financial information, and you would need to input your household income into the application. These are Student Finance England slides, and they say you should apply as soon as possible once the service opens. The service usually will open around January time. It does vary slightly, but it is normally around the turn of the year for students that are applying for September of that year. So it'll be January 21 for September, October 21 entry. We will keep an eye on that. We do start to visit the Student Finance website quite regularly, and we do get sent updates as and when it opens, and we will send that information out as soon as possible, because we do recommend you get in as early as you possibly can, just so that the finance is ready for you when you start the course, and it doesn't add any extra stress to the stress of moving out of your home and potentially moving to a city that you don't know. So you can apply online at gov.uk student finance. There are lots of handy tools on that website, including, like I say, the student finance calculator. Make sure you apply early. The key thing to note is you don't have to wait until you've confirmed a place at university to apply for student finance. You will at some point have to tell them where you're going, obviously, because they'll have to fund pay tuition fees to fund the course, but you don't have to have a confirmed place before you apply. We would recommend that you apply with your preferred choice. So let's say, for example, you've made a firm offer, or you've sent a firm offer back to a particular university. We would recommend that you put those details into the student finance system, so that the student finance have an idea of where you're going. If that changes at any point, and you end up with going on your conditional offer, or you go through extra and you change your university course, then please just inform student finance at the earliest convenience, so that the money is ready to go. That's just an example of the student finance page. What it looks like, it's very gov.uk. It's very sterile and very prim and proper, but it should have an awful lot of information there. And like I said, the student finance calculator that's highlighted on the right is a tool I would strongly advise that you use. If you want some happier, more colourful websites to give you some student finance advice, the studentroom.co.uk is a good tool. It's completely impartial. Students who are currently studying at university and previous students will go on there and answer questions honestly in some of the chat forums, and there's some really handy user guides there. And likewise, there is some really helpful information on the UCAS website, which is the portal for the general UCAS applications, university applications. And it's well worth just taking a look at some of the instruction guides and the how-tos and things on these websites, just so you're fully informed when you do apply. Once again, these student finance slides are not ours, so please don't panic when you see this and think that you have to give us your income details. You most certainly don't. We wouldn't expect that or want that. But you can support your son or daughter by making sure they apply for student finance. You provide your household income details to Student Finance England so that they can means test, and then it's a relatively simple process. The bullet point is here, but the money should be available when you start the course, both in the form of the tuition fees and the maintenance loan. So this is one of the key areas that concerns most people when it comes to student finance. Student Finance England will obviously give you the loan. They'll administer the loan, they'll manage the loan, and you'll repay the loan back to Student Finance England at various increments throughout your working life. Now, some people refer to this as a graduate tax, and I can see why, and hopefully I can explain why people have that philosophy around the repayments for Student Finance England. Some people have a philosophy around debt where a loan is a loan, and I'm going to potentially just have £50,000 worth of debt when I leave university. So whatever your philosophy is, whether you see it as a loan and a debt, or whether you see it as a tax, I'm hopefully going to be able to alleviate some of your fears around the repayments and the security that you'll have with this type of loan in comparison to maybe a personal loan or a mortgage. So the student loan repayments are based upon your future income, and they're not based upon how much you borrow. They are based upon how much you earn when you graduate. And there is a threshold, an earning threshold that you need to exceed before you even begin to repay back your student loan. It's currently set at £25,000 a year. There is a rumour that's going to go up slightly to maybe, I think, 25,300-ish. It's not going to go up significantly, so it's going to be around £25,000 per year that you need to earn before you start to repay back your student loan. The good news is that you won't make any repayments until your earnings are above the repayment threshold, and you won't start paying back the student loan until the April after you graduate and leave your course. And you'll only pay back 9% of whatever you earn over the threshold. And there's a security blanket there. If your income falls below the £25,000 threshold, then your repayments will stop at that point, and you won't be expected to start repayments until you once again earn over £25,000. And then any outstanding loan balance will be cancelled after 30 years of basically graduating. Now that's a good thing, I think, but most students will find that they're probably paying something back for the vast majority of that 30-year period when they graduate, unless their earnings are very high from the point at which they graduate. It's worth noting that these loans, they will incur interest, and the interest rates are usually around 3% plus retail price index, or the other way around, retail price index plus 3%. And the retail price index, when I checked earlier today, is currently at 2.9%, I believe. So there is a significant interest rate that will be attached to your student loan. The interest is charged from the point you take the loan out, not from the point you graduate. So it's just worth noting that you probably are going to borrow over that 3-year period slightly more than what you take out. But the security of the repayment system should hopefully make you see this as more of a tax as opposed to a loan. So just to model that, if you earn £25,000, you pay 9% on nothing because you're not earning over the threshold. If you earn £33,000, you will pay 9% back to the Student Finance England on the £8,000 that you earn above £25,000, and that equates to approximately £60 per month. That's taken out of your wage at the same point. At the same point that, for example, tax will be taken out. So it's very, very much like a tax in every aspect of it. You don't have to set up any separate payments, any direct debits. Student Finance England will literally take it out of your wage packet before you see it, and they'll stop taking it if your earnings fall below the threshold. So there's some security there. If you look at it as purely, I've got £60,000 worth of debt, it's quite a daunting prospect. If you look at it as I'm going to have to pay 9% of whatever I earn over £25,000, and that could potentially be £60 a month, it's not such a daunting prospect. But I appreciate that completely is down to your philosophy on debt and on the loan system. So if you need any more information on student finance, we have, Student Finance England, sorry, have experts online from 9 till 4 every day. I'm sure they'll be happy to field your questions. We have staff in the building who have a knowledge of Student Finance England, and we have links with the University of Hull student finance team, and they're more than willing to field any slightly more obscure queries that maybe we can't answer as a college. We'll do our best to either answer your questions or find out the answers if we don't know the answers to them. So let me just move forward. This slide, this definitely, most definitely isn't a Student Finance England's slide, but this is definitely a slide that I would advise all students to pay attention to, and we will do some work around this. And it's making sure that you are applying for university and progressing onto university courses with a really informed mindset around budgeting. I would advise that you look at the costs of rental, costs of student digs, student accommodation. Look at any bills that you may have to pay. Take a look at what your monthly outgoings are going to be for educational materials, food, toiletries, specialist equipment, any travel costs that you're going to incur, recreational activities, sports societies, etc. And you are going to need a social life at university, whether that be takeaways, cinema, etc. You are going to have to factor all of these things in. So we strongly urge students not to enter this university and certainly student finance blindly, because you may need to supplement the maintenance loan with money that you earn from maybe a part-time job in the summer, or support from parents, or a job whilst you're at university. So it's well worth budgeting first and then going into the university finance world with a completely open mind. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience tonight. Hopefully you found this useful. We will post these digitally, and if you have any questions, let me just put my email address to the form. You're welcome to contact me. Okay, thank you, guys. Have a nice evening, and take care. I'll leave that email address up if you do want to copy it down, and I can redirect you to the rest of our staff if they're the more appropriate people to deal with it. Thank you.